Hey everyone, welcome to another tutorial inspired by the work I did whilst over in Sydney, helping out Sydney Human Factors Research. Today we're going to go over a node. I don't usually do a whole video just on one node, but I found the perfect use case twice for this node, so I want to go over it just so people are aware that it exists and how to use it. So in this world here, I have, it's impulse demultiplexer that we're going to go over. So in this world here, I've got the teleport zones from the previous video, but I've also got 4 pulse nodes. And if I pull these out here, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And you might want to kind of do the same thing on each of these. So let's say you wanted to, I don't know, let's say like a set slot name. Where are we? Set slot name or something like that. You might want to do something like that. You can easily plug all of these into that same node there. But things start getting unwieldy. You're like, hang on a minute, which one triggered this? Maybe if the 5th button was pushed, I should name the slot 5. Or if the 3rd button was pushed, I should name it 3. How do you do that without kind of duplicating up these? You know, you might have 4 of these and then hook these across, and then you start getting to sort of all sorts of realms of spaghetti. Turns out the demultiplexer can save you there. Let me just do a little bit tidying up here. Get rid of that one too. And we're going to get rid of that one. You go ahead to flow, and then inside flow you'll see impulse demultiplexer. Inside impulse demultiplexer, you'll see that there are 2 sides of the node. You need the left side to match the number of inputs that you have. So in this case we have 4, but we have 2, so we just pushed plus twice. We get 4 on the left, and then you've got 1 impulse on the right, and then also an int. Let's hook this in and not really worry about what it does until we're hooked in. So here we go, hooked in, hooked in, hooked in. And then I'm going to pull this out, and I'm also going to pull this out. And so you'll see here when I pulse, I get a pulse over here. This number doesn't appear to change. This is another one of those nodes of Logix where the result of this node, this output, only exists for 1 frame. So if you want to look at it, you should temporarily, at least whilst you're running some code, you should write it to a variable. Avoid writing it to a variable if you don't need to. But for now, we can, just so we can kind of see and explain how it works. So we're going to write that into this variable, and then we're going to pull out the integer value here to 0. So here, I'm going to pulse this one, and I'm also going to that out as well. So you'll see we get a result from the right. So here you'll see 0, that's fine. If I do this, you'll see 3 is written into here. And that's because what this impulse demultiplexer does is it takes all of these impulses, and it converts them into 1 impulse and then an index, which tells you which impulse was fired. If I pulse 2, I know that 2 has been fired down here. Why is this useful, we might add? Let's go back to our set slot name example. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a box, and we're going to pull out the inspector for that by grabbing here, spawning it in the world. And then we're going to go to slots, set slot name, and we'll plug in the slot here that I just pulled out, so that box. Also pull this out so you can see it. And then we're going to plug the result of the impulse demultiplex into the name. Is that not autocast? No worries, we'll have to use a format node. I will go over the format node pretty much every video that I need to, but for now just know that it can convert numbers into a string. So it starts off with a string and it has inputs. We just need 1, so we push the plus arrow here and we put that int value into the first input here. And in the string here, we're going to put the word, feel free to just copy this until you get the hang of it, box, and then open curly brace, 0, close curly brace. And then we'll put that into the set slot name output. And then we're going to clean up a little bit because we've got nodes everywhere. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to get rid of the write node and the display node here. And we're going to put this into set slot name. And now we're going to fire some nodes. So here, if I fire the top one, box 0, box 1, box 2, box 3. So again, here you can see that the button here, or the pulse button here, is coming down into the impulse demultiplexer. It's coming out as 1 impulse, but also an index that lets us know which one was fired. We're putting it into the format node here, and we're just doing box and then 0 in these curly braces. And that means use the first value from the format node, so this value here, which is the index coming out, and then set that slot name. So here we go, box 3, box 2, box 1, box 0. I use this in Spider Island again to basically hook in a bunch of keyboard shortcuts using the type delta setup I had previously. I might as well just spawn it for you, actually. So it's in my public folder, and it's in utilities, and there it is. You need to make an edit to it. I will update this and put it into the public folder later, because this is the version that takes a user. We don't need the user most of the time, so we can just do dynamic impulse trigger. And you know what, we'll actually just do both of those again, like that. Root node in there, and then the type delta in there. And so now, what we do here is dynamic impulse receiver. We can receive a bunch of these. And put them all through the same logic. And you might be saying, well, why don't you just set the name to the name of the dynamic impulse receiver? And you'd be right, except what if you wanted to do something more complicated, like set the box name, and then based on the number that came through, set it to something, set it to a different position, or set it to a different color. Here I'm going to say 2, 3, 4. I have to go back and get rid of that X there on the 3. There's 3. Okay. So now here I'm going to reach for my keyboard, try and focus, which I am. Reach for my keyboard, go to the top of my keyboard. I'm going to mess this up a bit. 1, 2, there we go. So 2 fired, and it got set to box 1. 3 fired. You have to take my word for it. I am pushing on my keyboard here. 4 fired. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all on my keyboard. I can actually prove that by going here and pulling this out. And so now you can see there is a totally wireless operation happening. I just got to find my number row again. There you go. So it comes out of here as the dynamic impulse and goes into there as 1, which comes out as the 0th impulse from the impulse demultiplexer and sets it to, actually it looks like I'm pushing 2. Now I'm pushing 1. It's very hard to see when you're in VR. So again, the 1 is being pushed, which comes into here as the 0th impulse on the impulse demultiplexer, comes out, goes into the format, and into the set slot name. I use this to do things like conditionals. So for example, here we can say operators question mark equal. So we can say does this equal 4? There we go. No. Might have a bug here. I'll have to put that to this later. I'm going to get around that bug by specifying the int first. So int, and then that should convert it nicely. There we go. So if this equals 0, 1, 2, 3, so if this equals 3, then what we're going to do here is that's the false value, and then the true value will be potato. So now we plug in the result of the output into the set slot name, and then you'll see if we find that number row again, getting increasingly difficult for me. There we go. So 0 does nothing because it doesn't evaluate this condition. 2, 3, 4. And on 4, it goes through here and it says, I received the 4 impulse here, which comes out here as 3. Does 3 equal 3? Yes. So then it will fire the true of the question mark equal, or also known as ternary. And the true value is potato up here. So now the box will be called box and then the number, except if I push 3, at which point it'll be called potato. I hope it helps providing a few examples of that. We've been whittling along for quite a long while. Needless to say, sorry, the impulse demultiplexer is super useful for things like that. Just think about it when you've got one data flow coming out and multiple data flows going in, and you don't want to repeat yourself, but you want an idea of what you triggered. So this could be any number of triggers, buttons, switches, teleports, users, avatars, whatever you want that happens, that causes an impulse. And then you want to know which one happened, and then take some action from that. I'll see you next time, probably with another Spider Island themed video. See you later.